passing, 19 rushing. That's what really stood out to me. I mean, they kind of just pinned their ears back and just went after them. That Metamora defensive line had 4 sacks. There was a pick 6. So I was very, very impressed with how Metamora responded from that bye week, and that gives them some momentum heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And this is Gavin here. Thanks for joining us, Adam. But I got to ask, we were out at Morton in Washington, and of course, kind of seeing that game, seeing the low score, getting some stats and takeaways from that game. I mean, it was low scoring, but again, just an excellent matchup. Both teams really shown that they can bring it on defense, especially Washington, huge for the playoffs, really showing that they can get it done on offense, but they can also really have the defense step up when it needs to be stepped up. Just kind of some takeaways from that game.
You know what? I like Washington, what they've done so far. Started the season 1-3. Now they've allowed 7 or fewer points in each of their last 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
They're on a 5-game winning streak. I know you'll have him on later in the show, but Garrett Cox, talk about a great effort out of a defensive lineman. He had 1.5 sacks, and then steps in as punter and adds an extra point. Just an overall great effort out of the Panthers.
Yeah, the Garrett Cox punt effort was strong on Friday night. It was a great effort.
And Doobie, this is Joko now. As we just broke down Week 9, just discussed Washington, Dunlap, Metamora. Going forward, all going to be in the playoffs. What do you like out of Metamora, Washington, Dunlap? Obviously, the defense for Washington and Metamora is looking really solid. What do these teams got to do to make that deep run?
I think it's pretty simple. I mean, you gotta play mistake-free on offense. You got to play mistake-free on defense. You have to play mistake-free on special teams. And that's what it boils down to, especially in the playoffs. You have the margin of error is very, very minimal. And, I think all of these teams are set up for, a deep run. Obviously, Dunlap playing Highland. That's a tough draw for them. But, I like Metamora. First round against Jacksonville, and if they play Muhammad Seymour, I like them against Muhammad Seymour as well.
Definitely, sure. And Adam, kind of just looking at the whole season, kind of in retrospect, at least the regular season. Obviously a lot of teams go up and down, ebb and flow throughout the season, but when all is said and done, who is maybe a team or two that really kind of surprised you? Maybe not surprised is the word, but maybe performed a lot better than maybe most people you think had expected.
I think that the expectations for Eureka coming into this year, they had 21, 22 starters back. Knew that they were going to be experienced. Knew that they were going to be tough offensively, but I'm very surprised with how their defense played. They had, I think it's 5 shutouts this year, and they allowed 37 total points. And they play in a tough league. Colfax Ridgeview is one of the top-ranked teams in 1A. Tri-Valley, El Paso, who is a 7-2 team. They got a dogfight against DMAC in Week 9 and came away with a shutout victory. So I specifically like what Eureka did, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention Peoria High. Malachi Washington coming in, filling some big shoes from Eddie Clark, and had over 2,000 rushing yards. And again, that's another team that, it was built on defense. I visited with Tim Thornton midway through the season and told him, hey, your defense is averaging 20-odd points a game, and he's like, I'll take it. I think this is one of the best defenses we've had in 5-6 years. And they head into the playoffs, giving up 17 points a game. The Peoria High defense, the Peoria High offense, very, very fun, very, very high energy tempo. Great team to watch. If you're not doing anything on Saturday at 1:00, head over to the stadium, and you'll see some high-level entertainment.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. There's a lot of great games to choose from. If you got to choose one playoff game this entire week, and this is putting you on the spot, Adam, but one playoff game, which one you think is going to be the most exciting, maybe the closest one out of any game this week in IHSA playoffs?
Oh, geez. Do I get one on Friday and one on Saturday, or just?
Sure, we'll give you a Friday one. We'll give you a Saturday one. Sure.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll go back to Eureka on Friday night playing Beardstown. Beardstown's a team that's 5-4. They grind it out, but I like Eureka's chances. I like them. If I was filling out a bracket, NCAA March Madness style, I'd probably have them go into the semifinals. But yeah, I would say Eureka on Friday night, and then like I just said, Peoria High. Peoria High, that should be a good game. The last time they ran into a team from Decatur, they put up 96 points. Not saying that that's going to happen on Saturday, but we could definitely see some fireworks.
Definitely. I mean, Adam, that probably about wraps it up as far as your analogy. Looking forward to some of these games. I think the Mid-Illini, you just look at the last few weeks of the season, these teams have really clicked, especially Washington, Metamora, Peoria High. They just kind of found their footing, and you throw in Eureka in that category. It's exciting to see so many area teams that are playing so well, especially heading into the postseason.
John, without a question, teams like, in the smaller school, you had like Stark County, who was 4-4, had to win a big game week 9 against Princeton, pulled that out. El Paso, they're 7-2.
Yeah.
Who played Farmington 7-2. I mean, I would be, that's a great game. El Paso and Farmington last year. Farmington turned on the Jets and just kind of blew them out. And I think this year, this El Paso Farmington game could be, maybe a 22-21 game type of thing. And, you just look at up and down the line from 1A all the way to 7A with Pekin. Pekin's another team. If I was filling out a 7A bracket, I would have them all the way to the semis, and then you never know what can happen. You need the right amount of luck and the ball to bounce your way here and there, and Pekin could be playing for a state title. I mean, a number of our area teams could have an opportunity to raise a trophy on the last day of the season.
Yep.
Definitely. I mean, Adam, too, another thing that you just mentioned with Pekin, and you look ahead to last season with Seth Glatz and Morton making that run, almost getting to the state championship solely because of the ground game. And Seth Glatz, well, that same thing with Pekin, Kanye Tyler and Tanner Sprecher, they have that ability to run that ball.
I would agree. I like their road. If you look at who, after, not looking past Plainfield Central or anything, but, normal community, Rockton, Hononegah, potential second round game. Pekin actually led Hononegah late in the second half of last year's second round game. I think they're hungry and they remember that loss, and that's going to carry them, like I said, to the quarters, to the semis, and you never know what can happen. But Pekin, I think Pekin is poised this year to make a nice run.
Definitely.
For sure. And Adam, we're about to wrap things up here with you and everything, but thank you so much for coming on to our show for a little bit. It's always great to hear your input and bring you on. We obviously brought on your editor Wes Hewitt earlier in the season. Thank you guys both for being so gracious and hopping on talking football for a couple of minutes. But we'll transition into a quick break. But Adam, thanks so much for hopping on. We will see if we'll see you out there this weekend. So.
Guys, thanks so much for having me. Keep up the great work. You guys do awesome what you do for the area. I mean, I'm sure everyone tells you, but I want to make sure to let you know directly from me that what you guys do. I know my wife, she loves watching you guys on Clutch Sports when you cover basketball or volleyball, or even my son too. So just what you guys do is great.
That's awesome to hear. Appreciate that, Dewey. Thank you.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Talk to you.
That was Adam Duvall of the Peoria Journal Star. I want to thank Adam for coming on. We will take a real quick break and come back with more In the Clutch live from Kouri's Pub here in Peoria. Don't go anywhere. Well, you'll want to stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
I couldn't hear what you
Welcome back to In the Clutch Live from Kouri's Pub in Peoria. We have two of our first guests here. We've got Tim Thornton and Deuce Thornton. I'm pretty sure you can tell they're related.
Right.
They look quite similar. But, no, we appreciate you guys coming on. We're going to ask you a few questions here. But playoff time, and, it's exciting time of year. I mean, you know a lot about the playoffs, Tim. You've been here for a lot of years. What gets you excited for this?
Man, just a chance to start over. It's a new season. It's a fresh start. And we told the kids today, nobody cares how many games you won. Nobody cares about the one you lost. And, whatever the team did that we're getting ready to play, they're coming in on the same boat with a fresh start as well.
For sure. And this is your second state playoffs as a player.
Yep.
So, I mean, what's it like as a player? I mean, I know the fans get to experience it. Everybody in the community gets to experience it. But as a player, what makes it different?
It just feels like it's a bigger game on both sides of the ball. Everyone's giving their all at every play, and it feels better when you come out on top.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Tim, we had Landon Newby-Holsum on one of our podcasts earlier in the season. He talks about this being a brotherhood. A lot of guys are just clicking well with each other. How much of that is a factor going into postseason games that all your guys are just there for each other, playing hard-nosed defense and offense?
Yeah, I think that's tremendous. We spent a lot of time in the last 2 weeks talking about trust and being able to look the guy in the across from you in the eye and up and down the sideline and know that everybody's going to do everything they can to do their part, to take care of what they need, and to be there for each other. And, that's just stuff that spills over into life. So if you can knock that out now, that's pretty awesome.
Definitely.
Where would you say, I always like to ask coaches this before the season, maybe like what do you want to work on, but where have you seen your team grow the most in the 9? I mean, that's a big question to ask, but just from the start of the season to the end, where's been the biggest growth?
Well, I think we came in with a lot of inexperience. We came in with a lot of guys that were in some new spots, and I just kind of saw guys mature in their roles. And I think the thing I'm maybe most pleased with is the amount of guys that found a way to contribute, even if it wasn't, the optimal role, or you're not the star, you're not the guy that's going to be in the newspaper, you're not the guy that's going to be on the podcast, but you're finding a way to make us better every day and be a factor. And I think that's been a tremendous boost for us.
And Tim, that definitely goes into what you're saying. Some of those guys that might not get mentioned, they do the little things throughout games. Well, Malachi's had an unbelievable season, but that really starts with the offensive line up front that's opening those holes for him.
Sure, we've got guys up front that are, and they're the guys I'm talking about that were inexperienced coming in. We had no returning starters on the offensive line. Deuce started last year for us, but played tight end for us this year, and so those 5 were in new roles. We even had a 6th step up, and they did a tremendous job growing into their role and giving Malachi something that he could trust and believe in. So he hits holes whether he can see them or not, and turns out all right for him most of the time.
I got to ask, so you're on the offensive line, you're opening up a lot of holes, you and your teammates. Does Malachi ever do anything nice for you? Does he buy you dinner? Does he do any thank yous for Malachi?
He definitely gives us verbal thank yous after the game.
For sure, absolutely. So, being on the offensive line, what do you do to, really click with everybody? I mean, what does it take to kind of, everybody's on the same page, just kind of coming from a player? Tell our viewers a little bit about what that takes.
Just spending a lot of time together, getting that good chemistry with each other. It's 5 people. It's like a brotherhood, basically. You try to get on the same page for every week, watch a lot of film, hang out in between classes, just be friends.
No doubt about it. So you play a team in Decatur MacArthur you know pretty well. You played them a few years ago in the state playoffs. I mean, you're obviously going through your normal scouting and things, but when you come to playoff time, do you just treat it as a normal week, or do you treat it a little bit differently?
So a little bit of both. You want to be as normal as possible, but also at the same time, we do something a little different in the playoffs. It's something I stole from Pat Ryan a long time ago, but we bring a lot of freshmen up that maybe weren't on varsity all year long, and we try to get them incorporated a little bit and kind of build the tradition that's going to get passed down a little. But we ask a little bit more out of our scout team. With the freshmen and JV coaches up, now we've got a little bit more hands on deck, and so we can ask more of those guys as well. So it's a little bit more intricate, but at the same time, we want that routine feel best we can for the varsity players.
Sure.
And Coach, you've started a really rich tradition here at Peoria High, winning football games. You guys played in a Big 12 conference this year that was extremely tough. How does that really help you going forward into the postseason? You had some really good teams you ran into.
Yeah, games like West and Community, every year get you ready for the playoffs. You're playing those. We played a lot of 6A teams in our conference, play a 7A team in our conference, and that just kind of helps a little bit when you get to the playoffs and you're just used to a certain speed, and then if you find yourself in a situation where it's not quite the same, it just feels comfortable. So I think having those games like West and Community, I think that really makes a big difference for us.
So in the playoffs, of course, you want your guys to do the best. But looking at some of your other conference teams, who would you say maybe has the best potential to go far? Maybe not even in your class, in Community being a big school, 7A. Which one of those schools in your conference do you think maybe could go the farthest?
Boy, that's a tough call, especially looking at some of the brackets. Unfortunately, two of our teams face each other with the Danville West game, and then either one of them is going to run into a buzzsaw the next week. I don't know who Centennial plays. I didn't spend a ton of time looking at the I think we're the only ones from our conference in the 5A bracket, so I didn't spend too much time looking at the others. As soon as we get that info of who we're playing, it's mad dash to try to, out-coach the other team in a hurry, I guess. So.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun Saturday, and, talking to everybody in the community. I mean, what do you tell the Peoria community? Get out, support you. I mean, it's going to be a fun day. What do you tell them?
Well, I think I heard it a little bit from Adam. We're definitely an exciting brand of football to watch. And that's one of the good things about the playoffs is now all of a sudden there's half the amount of games that there normally are. And now, usually everybody's on Friday night or real close to it. And now it's kind of split up a little bit. And we're that Saturday at one spot. So if you want to check out some good football, you've got an opportunity to do so. I know I'm partial, but I think we're fun to watch. There's not we kind of cater to the ADD crowd where we're not going to have a lot of time between plays, so we're going to get out and get after it, and we kind of hope the other team does too.
And I know you got to appreciate the energy from the crowd. I mean, you got to get everybody fired up. I mean, you got to tell the fans to get out there on Saturday.
Yeah, be there 1 o'clock at the stadium.
Absolutely. Anything else, John?
Yeah, last thing, Deuce, just kind of run me through over the weekend. Obviously, you knew you were getting in, but when you see your name pop up on the screen, you see who you're playing, what's the excitement like around the team?
Man, everyone was just hyped to see our name up there, see the high seed that we got, and even see the matchup. Many players probably didn't know who the team was, but they were just excited for the challenge coming up.
Definitely.
It's going to be a challenge, Dean. Any closing thoughts? I mean, it's going to be a fun week.
No, I mean, just excited about being at playoff time, and I hope we can. I hope you need to talk to us next week and the week after and the week after and the week after.
No doubt about it. We're excited to watch you guys. Joko, any final thoughts for him?
Yeah, just best of luck in the postseason.
Thank you.
Go get them.
It's gonna be exciting. Saturday at 1 p.m. You may see that one on ClutchSportsIL.com, but get it out to the stadium if you're in town. Definitely don't want to miss that one. It's gonna be high energy. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Peoria High takes on Decatur MacArthur. We're gonna step aside for a quick break, real quick. We'll get our next guest in here and be back on In the Clutch Live from Kouri's Pub.
Hello and welcome back to In the Clutch, live from Kouri's Pub here on Sterling Avenue in Peoria. I'm Jonathan Michael, alongside me, Gavin Russell and John Camosa, obviously, but we have another big presence over to my right, your left, Ben Wallace from the Metamora Redbirds joining us. Ben, it's been a great season for you guys. Again, thanks for coming on to the podcast, taking some time out of your day, coming after practice as well. I mean, obviously a big win against Dunlap last week. How have practices been kind of feeling this week?
This week we just kind of had an install getting ready for Jacksonville in the playoffs, but it was kind of hard not having a Friday game against East Peoria, so we were able to just focus on Dunlap, but we were getting after it. We were trying to get ready for this big playoff game. That's what we consider this Dunlap game.
And you've been around the playoffs a little bit. You obviously know the great tradition Metamora has with football. So kind of asked Tim Thornton the same thing a few minutes ago, but what do you do differently with the playoffs? I mean, do you approach it a different way, or do you just kind of go in with the same mindset?
You have to kind of treat it like this is your last game, especially for us seniors. We're not guaranteed anything more, and so we got to treat it as we got to give it our all. And so in practice, we're going to make each other better even more, and we're just going to help each other get better and better each day.
And, looking at that game on Friday night, you're running into a really good Dunlap team. Obviously, that game could have went either way, but you guys came out offensively, defensively. That's a really good thing to see going into the postseason, all that momentum.
Yeah, for sure. If I compared it to last year, we have a lot more momentum, and I think we're more of a we team this year. I mean, we can rely on that defense, and my brother, Captain Dalton Schuda, I can trust him. I mean, it's a brotherhood out there for especially, and so we just trust each other, and we get things done.
Definitely, and talking about just like your team aspect and everything, obviously, really going into the season, the big storyline for you guys was Caden moving over from wide receiver to quarterback, but just obviously you see him a lot more than we do. I mean, but just what's it been like for him, playing with him and just seeing what he's been able to do at quarterback and everything? Obviously you've probably been blocking for him a little bit as well, because he's quite mobile.
Yeah. So he was actually a quarterback his sophomore and freshman year, so he had experience then. And then as he was a receiver, he got to understand, like, moving to quarterback, he understood what his receivers were going through, and he just has that athletic body that is so dynamic, and where he can run, where he can pass. And I love blocking for him because we try and get these holes as big as possible for him, and we just like to see what he does. I like to chase him downfield and just try and follow him.
And so, you could see that late in the game, too, Ben, where, Cameron Davis and obviously Caden Hartnett had the majority of the runs. They had 5 combined touchdowns, but, even Mark Frederick gets in the game, bust down a big run. I feel like with your offensive line, you could throw anybody back there and open up a big door for them.
We try and block for anyone. I mean, we'll put whoever's back there and we'll block from them. We'll try and get the biggest hole from as big as possible.
So, you had a lot go right for you in that Dunlap game. What would you say maybe is an aspect of your team, whether it's special teams, defense, what's an aspect of your team maybe a little bit overlooked at times, but you think's pretty important?
Our defense, especially, I think sometimes they were looking down on us. I mean, we had a rough Pekin game, and then we were able to step up. We got back on Limestone, and then we really worked hard because we knew Dunlap would be a good game, and I think they've worked their butts off, especially to try and show who they are. They wanted to prove who they were.
Definitely, and looking at this upcoming Saturday, obviously a big game against Jacksonville, 8-9 matchup that on paper is obviously those games are usually pretty close, but again, Jacksonville, a team that at least I haven't seen too much. I mean, I don't know how much you've seen of them. What have you seen at least so far of Jacksonville, and maybe just what to expect maybe on Saturday?
I think they're a really good team. I think they're in a hard conference with Sacred Heart Griffin and Rochester, I believe.
Yep.
But so we have to expect good things. I mean, they're a team that can obviously they play well. I mean, they made it to the playoffs, so you can't downgrade a team. So I think it'll be a great game for us.
Definitely, and you also be at Malone Field too, snucking in there as the 8 seed. So that's obviously a pretty big advantage there. I know that you guys are always wanting to play at home, but that's pretty good. I mean, being able to have a playoff game at home, that usually means a good sign of success, and obviously helps you in the first round for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We love playing on Malone Field. We love playing at home. I mean, we get that home crowd. Nothing beats a Malone. What would be now Saturday football.
Yeah.
Do you think it makes a difference to you on a Saturday versus because again Friday night, you're always playing on Friday nights, 9 weeks. Does a Saturday make a difference to you at all?
It might make a little bit. I think what matters most is we get that extra Friday practice. We get put in a little bit more work, a little bit more mental, to try and get that little extra rep. That helps a lot more. So it's a little bit different than not playing on a Friday night, but as far as get extra practice, it really does help.
For sure.
Yeah, and just a question that I asked Deuce Thornton on our previous segment. Getting the announcement, seeing where you seed, seeing that you're at home, how's the team energy after that? I mean, you guys had to be pretty excited.
It was loud. It was very excited. We wanted that another home game. We love playing on Malone Field, and when you see you're the 8 seed at a home game, I mean, it just means a lot. I mean, we get to play in front of our home crowd because we don't have to travel, so we can focus.
For sure.
I know Malone's always rocking, but you got to expect the biggest crowd of the year. I mean, everybody's coming. I mean, everybody coming out on Saturday.
Yeah.
They're closing all the stores. Is everybody going to be there?
I mean, it's a small town. It's Metamora football.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone loves Metamora football. So I hope there's a big crowd. I want to perform. I want to do well for them.
Definitely. And one of the last questions I had, again, I don't know if Gavin or Joko have any more. If you do, go ahead. But one question I wanted to ask you, obviously sporting the Illinois, state hoodie right there, just kind of, obviously you're committed to the Redbirds, you're going to stay one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, what was that process like? Did you look at any other schools, and what really kind of resonated about Illinois State with you?
So the big thing that separated Illinois State from others is I want to become a teacher. So just their education program there's top, beats a lot of other schools. And so it was just a process that you have to start as young as possible. That's what I want to tell other people is start young, get to camps, get to college camps. I mean, it's just a lot of talking. It's trying to show yourself out. And so I was able to talk to other coaches in our colleges. I had an offer from Eastern Illinois University, but what just stood out was Illinois State. I wanted to become a teacher, their education program, and then just how close they are. And I get to stay a Redbird. I mean, nothing.
And you want to be a teacher, so that's maybe a potential future as a coach?
Yeah, so I want to try and be a high school math teacher and a coach as well.
Awesome. Very cool.
Awesome. Well, that was Ben Wallace of the Metamora Redbirds, everyone. Ben, thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
Again,
Absolutely.
Metamora Redbirds will take on the Jacksonville Crimson on Saturday. It's a game you don't want to miss, so get out to Malone Field. It's going to be a good one. So, again, that was Ben Wallace. You may see him on the sidelines coaching in a couple years. Who even knows? But Ben, it was a pleasure having you on, and best of luck on Saturday.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. All right, well, we'll take a quick break here from the In the Clutch Live podcast. Come back with some more interviews and more bracket breakdowns. Don't go anywhere here at Kouri's Pub here in Peoria. We will be right back. Hello and welcome back to the In the Clutch live podcast here from Kouri's Pub here on Sterling Avenue in Peoria. Again, I'm Jonathan Michael for Clutch Sports Media. Alongside me, John Camosa, and our two newest guests, we have Jake Stewart and Garrett Cox of the Washington Panthers, who just picked up a huge win in Week 9 against the Morton Potters in Week 9 to finish the season 6-3. Clutch Sports Media, we were there. I was on the call, but guys, thanks for coming, first of all. But second of all, a heck of a game on Saturday. I mean, just the ultimate defensive battle. Just, what was overall, what were your thoughts from that game? And also, what was the locker room like afterwards?
I'll start. So the defense came up big in that game. Offensively, we struggled. They had a spy on Kanan McQuarrie, who is ultimately one of the best players in the area. And so they took away Kanan pretty well, and our defense had a heck of a game. After the game, I know the guys were pretty fired up in the locker room, knowing that this year there's been a lot of people doubting us in the area, knowing that we're a young team. But it was just a great feeling to finally get that last final win and go 6-3 on the season, which a lot of people didn't see us doing that.
And to your point, Jake, I mean, you see that first two losses, two tough teams, and everyone was kind of thinking, young team rebuilding. You guys have been on a tear ever since. That's got to be a lot of momentum going into the postseason.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. And Garrett, to add on that, just what have you seen with this team? You guys are really clicking on offense and defense.
I'd say our defense is probably our strongest point right now. Our offense took a long time for them to get going last week, but in the end, evidently we won. So that spy on Kanan really helped them a lot. So I'd say good game plan by them. But we got a few more weapons on offense. Jake here. Our O-line came up big in the clutch down the stretch. So I think after the game, everybody was really hyped. Really exciting moment.
Definitely. And you talked about your offense, you talked about your defense, but you can't forget about the third part of the game, and that's special teams. Garrett, I see you laughing there. You probably knew we were going to talk to you about your punting show, Pat McAfee-esque, may I say. I mean, that was pretty good performance out there again with Mitch Coughlin, the Washington starting kicker and punter, out playing a regional soccer game. But just overall, I mean, again, how much kicking and punting practice have you done? Do any at the start of the year, and just kind of take me through what that was like on Saturday or on Friday for you.
So like the beginning of the year, they told me here and there I'm going to kick a little bit. Mitch will be at soccer games. I was like, all right. So I had to mentally prepare for that because that's a whole different game, thinking about kicking and stuff like that. So going into Friday, I really didn't know when I was going to kick until like Wednesday or Thursday. But in practice, we do special teams. I usually kick because Mitch is usually playing soccer. That's his big thing. And props to him. He's going to Bradley. Good for him. And so I've never punted before. Never before. And
how about that?
So the first snap, I was like, just catch it and punt it. But after that, I kind of settled in. It was kind of nice just to have success with that, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And then, Joko, if you had a question?
Jake, for you, coming into this year, transitioning quarterback, your senior season, you've really put the puzzle pieces together, got your guys ready on offense. Just kind of take me through some of that leadership. How do you get your team fired up in the locker room, maybe on the sidelines? Just a little bit about being the quarterback.
Yeah, so it's just keeping those guys engaged, After our first two losses, a lot of those guys were down, but a lot of them were young, and I told those dudes that they got a bright future ahead of them, but also ultimately this year we have a chance at winning some football games and shocking some people. And once we got the ball rolling, those guys really started buying in, and everything's gone uphill from there.
Definitely. And then, obviously the first big win of the season for you guys this week was back in Week 3 against Metamora, a dominating 44-22. I believe that was the final score, if memory serves me right. I was on the call for that game. But, that game just really kind of kick-started your guys' season. Obviously, you had a tough loss again in Week 4, but then reeled off 5 straight wins. But going back to that Metamora game, obviously I know it always feels good to beat, Metamora and everything like that. So just kind of, what was, I guess, maybe like the best part about that game?
Looking back at that game, that was definitely a must-win game now. Like, if we would have lost that game, we would have been 0-3 and then had Pekin the next week, which we ultimately would have ended up 0-4. And that first win really took some pressure off everyone's shoulders and got us to start rolling in the right direction.
Yeah, and that was the game that we actually were calling a radio game, I believe, in Dunlap. So we were following a little bit on our phone. That was back and forth, and then you guys really just took off there and separated. How good does that feel to not only win a game like that, but in front of, your home crowd?
It felt great because I'd argue that we have the best student section in the area, and they were at all of our games this year, and to finally get a win in front of our home crowd was just a great feeling.
And Garrett, for you as well, that game, I mean, the excitement in the locker room afterwards, especially beating your rival, that's something that Washington likes to do each year.
Yeah, absolutely. So going into halftime that game, we were tied, and pretty much everybody just looked at each other like, it's do or die. Like, we can't lose this game. We have to win this game. And that was really the motivating factor. Then we just kind of took off from there. So, yeah, that was probably our turning point around this season.
Definitely, but looking forward to this weekend for you guys are on the road to face Bremen up in Midlothian. I had to look up where that is. It's on the south suburbs of Chicago, but, obviously I asked Ben, what he sees from Jacksonville. What have you guys seen so far, at least for Bremen, and just kind of how are you guys getting ready for that game?
Yeah, so Bremen's got a good squad. They got playmakers. But ultimately, I feel like we're prepared. We played a pretty tough schedule this year. We've seen some of the best playmakers in the area, in the state also. So I'd say we're pretty prepared from that standpoint. But their offense is a wing T, so our defense is getting prepared for that. And then their defense is a 3-4, so a lot of running the ball, hopefully.
Yeah, and to your point, Jake, I know they have a good running back there in Townsend. I'm sure they run a couple other guys. They don't throw the ball a ton. But you guys have seen Pekin's Tanner Sprecher and Kanye Tyler. You've seen Caden Hartnett from Metamora, Dunlap's Graham Glover. That's obviously got to get you prepared for a team in Bremen.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And last question I had to ask for you guys. I mean, the season has been, a rather quite interesting one again. As you mentioned, starting off 1-3, but playing one of the toughest schedules in the area. Overall, I know, Jake, it's your final year in at least playing football. I know we'll be seeing you quite a bit for basketball season here coming up. Maybe hitting some more buzzer beater threes to win the game. That was an iconic game in Clutch Sports media history, may I add. But, just overall, what's been, overall what's been some of the biggest takeaways of the season, and really just kind of, what's the reason for optimism, in Washington going forward?
I'd just say that it's been a great pleasure of mine to be a part of this team. It's one of the first teams where I've really been a part of where I'm the oldest guy and I'm leading a lot of young guys. I've had great leaders in the past, such as Drew Lewis, Isaac Mapson, on both the football and basketball court, and it's kind of my turn now to be the leader for these guys and show them how Panther football is played.
Yeah, and Jake's a really good leader at that. Not only in football, but in baseball as well. I'm a big baseball guy, so Jake being out there for me every day was really nice. And just looking back on the season, we knew when we were 1-3, we knew that Washington football is a tradition of success. So we just really bounced back, and we really found a way to hit a groove.
And Garrett, you guys both play baseball. You play basketball. You had a great season in basketball, great season in baseball, getting to the postseason. Now it's football season. I mean, that's got to feel good playing so many sports and having so much success.
Yeah, you definitely build connections with guys when you play multiple sports, and it also builds your competition and competitiveness, I feel.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, guys, thank you so much for stopping by, coming on to our podcast. Multi-sport athletes here, Jake Stewart and Garrett Cox of the Washington Panthers. They excel in baseball, basketball, but also football as well, and you'll see them this weekend up against Midlothian up in Bremen on Friday night, I believe. Correct. All right. So typical Friday night lights. Nothing changes on the schedule for these guys. But again, guys, congratulations on a great season. Thank you for stopping by. Wish you the best of luck on Friday.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, we will take another quick break here on In the Clutch live from Kouri's Pub in Peoria, Illinois on Sterling Avenue. We have a couple more guests left, including Pekin quarterback Scotty Jordan. Also a couple bracket breakdowns and more commentary as well. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back to In the Clutch, live from Kouri's Pub here on Sterling Avenue in Peoria for Gavin Russell, John Kamosov, Jonathan Michael, and we have a new guest here at the table. We didn't forget about Pekin. Scotty Jordan, the quarterback of the 9-0 undefeated Dragons, joins us for his second time on the podcast. I think Scotty's the only repeat guest on the In the Clutch podcast. So, Scotty, a little bit of history. Don't really have a trophy for you or anything like that, but you get a little bragging rights. But, again, thanks for joining us. But, again, obviously, you guys, undefeated season. I mean, do you guys see this coming at all?
I mean, we've been a really good team since we were about 8 years old. We've all started playing together. So, this is like what we've all dreamed and worked on. So, we really expected this year. This was our goal.
9-0 is something, though, that Pekin hasn't done in a while. And, I mean, does it a little bit different just to be able to do it for the community? I mean, for the fans, for the students. I mean, give you a little more pride?
Oh, yeah, it gives us a ton of pride because we'll be out and about and, people will just be like, hey, nice game on Friday, good job. And like you said, Pekin hasn't been undefeated in 21 years, so it's a great accomplishment to get it back into Pekin football.
Mm-hmm. And Scotty, at quarterback, you could throw the ball. You have Bo Benassi out there. How good does it feel to kind of take the workload off you that Kanye Tyler and Tanner Sprecher have put up some of the numbers they've put up this season?
Oh, it's unbelievable because, we're a triple threat. We can throw. We have two amazing running backs, and it helps take so much of a load off of you because you're like, all right, we can't get a big play through the air, and you're like, hand it off to one of them, and one of them will get a big play eventually.
Definitely. And, obviously going back to the running back duo of Kanye Tyler and Tanner Sprecher, it's kind of amazing to see what they've done, even with the amount of carries that they've gotten. Obviously, most high school teams, if they have, one running back, they'll hand it off to maybe 20, 30, maybe 40 times a game or so. But even with the two backs and everything, feels like, they're really only getting maybe between 10 and 20 carries a game. So, I would kind of guess that, they're probably feeling pretty good, probably not feeling too overworked. I'm sure that's really probably helped your team.
Oh, yeah. Being able to have that two-back system going in, two amazing backs, it really helps so one isn't getting tired all the time and everything. And with them both playing defense, it helps. They get a little bit of a break on the sideline each.
And you being the quarterback, of course, you and Bo Benassi, you've got other great receivers as well. But that kind of that versatility, a lot of people, and Kanye and Tanner have been amazing running backs. But just that versatility, how big is that for you to be able to, teams don't really know what to expect all the time?
Oh, yeah, it's amazing to be able to, throw one game, run another game because I'm just going to call out Morton last year. Seth Glatz, he was amazing, and what Morton was going to do. They were going to run on you because they could do it. They had no problem with it. But being able to throw and pass, it kind of affects other teams' game planning for you.
And if we have to highlight a couple of these games that are getting you ready for the postseason, you went through a good Mid-Illini conference. Going back to that game, how big of a win? I saw you guys were really hyped beating Morton. I mean, it was a 14-7 game in the rain. Not a high-scoring offensive game, but that had to be really refreshing to get that win.
Oh, it was because last year that was our loss that we kind of dimmed on last year because we lost by a touchdown again. So it was good. We really had a hitch coming in this game, so we really wanted that win.
And I'll jump in real quick. I know you mentioned something the other day to me about the Belleville East game. They're a big school as well, so that was an early season test against a big school.
Oh, yeah. Last year, it was kind of a blowout and everything, but this year we knew that, they had a better team this year, and they really did. They put up a good fight against us this year, and it was good to play against a bigger school.
Yeah,
definitely. And Scotty, looking at the last, even past going beyond this season, or rather in retrospect going back to last season, the only game you guys have lost, I think, in the last, I'm going to throw it in, I think about maybe 15 or 16 games was that really close loss to Hananiga in the playoffs last year. You guys, it's not only this undefeated season, but this has been something that's going back all the way to last year where your only loss coming by 3 points to a team that was a state contender last year.
Oh, yeah. That loss really hurt a lot of us, and a lot of those seniors I've played with since I was 8 years old, even younger than that. But to see how they felt and how we all felt after that game and that loss, we didn't want that feeling again this year.
What do you do? You guys are 9-0, so you guys, you're good, you're hyped up, excited for the playoffs. But to stay focused and to stay balanced, what do you do to keep everybody on the same page, keep everybody level-headed?
It's after, we've got our 9-0 and everything, but after last week, after beating East Peoria, we're 0-0. We have no record, no nothing, because playoffs records don't really matter essentially because it's postseason. You just got to go and you have to play your game. Yeah.
Even though you guys knew you were getting in undefeated, still had to feel really good to see that number 3 seed. You look at the 7A, correct? Yeah, 7A bracket. there's a lot of tough teams, suburbs, but you guys know going in that you have a lot of potential offense, defense. You got a good chance.
Oh, yeah, being that number 3 seed, it really helps a lot, especially with us getting that home game advantage. And I tell you what, playing at Pekin is definitely an experience, and the crowd momentum helps. But it really just helps a lot having that high seed.
Definitely, and obviously, it's been such a good season for you guys. Obviously, it can get better undefeated, What's been the most fun memory, I guess, of the season that you guys have had so far? Whether that's on or on the field during out in practice or –
something that we talked about a little bit before was Miley's tackle that happened during Washington.
That was a heck of a tackle.
It was, and none of us expected her to do that. And it was kind of like we all preach to ourselves and not necessarily Miley, but necessarily preach to lay your body out on the line for your team. And none of us were expecting her. We've talked about her sliding, maybe tripping them. We'll take the penalty over the touchdown. But for her to make that tackle, the sideline got so crazy and everything. It was just everybody was just so hyped for it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the coolest part, too, is that, she didn't hesitate. She was right there to pull him down. So, I saw you guys jumping up and down. That definitely is like a morale booster for the team, gets you guys really pumped up.
Oh, it really was. And the funniest part was after she got up, she kind of had a little bit hit to the head a little bit. But as soon as she got up, everybody was, like, smacking on the helmet because that's what you do after a big play. And she was just like, kind of overwhelmed by it a little bit too.
Sure, yeah. And you've got a big game. I got to ask, Friday versus Saturday, in the playoffs, you might have a little bit of a mix-up there with the Friday and Saturday. What do you prefer? You a Friday night light guy, or you like that Saturday kind of midday?
Oh, no, I love to keep it Friday night light. We all have our routine that we go through on Fridays and everything, so I'd much rather keep it on a Friday night.
For sure, and you're going to have probably the whole town of Pekin out there on Friday. I mean, what do you say to the fire pit? What do you say to everybody in Pekin? Got to tell them to come out.
Oh, yeah, if you keep coming out because you guys are our momentum boost through the game.
Definitely, and I forget which game it was, but the last time at least I was in Pekin, I think it was the homecoming game, I want to say. But, I mean, your guys' stands are pretty big. I mean, you guys have the biggest stadium in the whole entire area. I remember the stands being filled. I mean, it was full capacity on the home side, which was insane. It was an atmosphere unlike any other. So, really just kind of last thoughts. What is your team is kind of, focusing on going into your matchup against Plainfield Central on Friday?
It's really about our game plan. We really have to execute. We're seeing a defense that we really haven't seen, but either way, I know our team's going to overcome it. It's just all about adversity at this point.
I'm all good, yeah.
I'm good, yeah.
For sure. Well, guys, that was Scotty Jordan, the quarterback of the undefeated Pekin Dragons. They earned the number 3 seed in the Class 7A playoffs. They will host number 30 seed Plainfield Central this Friday at 7 p.m., I believe.
Yep.
But we will be broadcasting that live on ClutchSportsIL.com. So don't miss out on that as Pekin continues to vie to be undefeated and go one round deeper into the playoffs. So, again, Scotty, it's been a great season. Thank you so much for coming on to our podcast. Best of luck on Friday, and we will keep things rolling. We'll take a quick break here on In the Clutch and come back with some bracket breakdown, some analysis, and eventually we'll wrap things up here in maybe about 15 to 20, 25 minutes or so from Kouri's Pub here on Sterling Avenue in Peoria. So, for John Camosa and Gavin Russell, Scotty Jordan, our great guests, we'll take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on ClutchSportsIL.com. Welcome back to In the Clutch, live from Kouri's Pub here on Sterling Avenue in Peoria, Illinois, alongside Gavin Russell, John Camosa, and Jonathan Michael. If you're still sticking around, thanks for being with us here tonight, talking with all these great local athletes and coaches from area playoff teams that have qualified. And getting more into that, guys, I wanted to kind of, break down some brackets. Obviously, 256 teams in the field, broken up into 8 classes based on school enrollment. So there's area teams in just about each class, not quite everyone, but if you look around in the bigger area, maybe about 45-minute drive out, there's teams pretty much in every class that people will be following. So guys, just kind of wanted to get it kicked off. I mean, what's a class that you guys are really looking at, you think it'll be really exciting this year?
Well, I could say first, I mean, I hate to take this. I'm sure I'm probably stealing Joko's, but, probably 5 to 7A. And I'm a little biased towards the large school football just because we see a lot more of that. Now, that's nothing against small school football. Is a totally amazing atmosphere, and it's just a different feel to it. It's everything is so important. The whole community's out there. That's a wild atmosphere, and I love it. But 5 to 7A, we've got a lot of those teams from the area. I definitely think that one or more of those teams could have potential, make it to the quarterfinals, make it to the semifinals. You never even know, make it to state. I was saying earlier in the year, Peoria High, this is the best they've looked, I think, since they won that state title. So we have a lot of state contenders. I definitely think there's a lot of competitive teams from that 5 to 7A class. There's definitely going to be some exciting large school teams.
For sure.
Yeah, and you look at defense and you talk about our area teams. We had Jake Stewart and Garrett Cox on from Washington. Look at the defense that Washington's shown in these last few weeks. They're going into 6A, playing Bremen, and then you have Metamora, Peoria High, 5A. Like Gavin said, these are some teams that could really make some noise. They had some big wins to close out Week 9. They're going full head of steam into the postseason.
For sure. And take a quick break. I'm going to turn the mic down for this headset that we are not using anymore. Sorry about that, but just wanted to obviously avoid any echoes that we have. So I believe it is this one.
We'll find out sooner than later.
Yes, we'll find that out. But again, cord management is very, very important. But again, I'm gonna make sure you guys.
I think you got it.
No. There we go. Think we should be all good. Yes. All right. So, anyways, obviously lots of cords, lots of headsets here. Obviously, lots of great guests we've had as well. But getting into the brackets, guys, in Class 1A, not too many area teams, but a couple ones. You look at the north side of the bracket, you got Stark County. They're a 9 seed. They'll be hosting Rova. That matchup really interesting. Or rather, Stark County is on the road against Rova. That matchup interesting because Rova, the 8 seed, they're hosting, and they're 5-4. So 1A, that's pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, you don't really typically see that, but to be honest with you, I think, again, when you get to these small schools, I feel like it's very momentum-based because neither team, you're not going to have a huge difference in size advantage. Of course, you can, of course, say talent-wise in certain positions where teams may have strengths and weaknesses and things. I think it's all based off momentum, though, and, I think that's one of the things that teams like Stark County need to focus on. It doesn't matter if you're on the road to start with. It doesn't matter who you're playing. You need to just go out there and play grinded-out football. I think that's what they can do. And, again, Stark County is one of those teams they can definitely surprise in the playoffs.
Oh, for sure. And I think, to your point, postseason, all these teams in the area and, across Chicagoland area starting 0-0, you see some big numbers, some teams that maybe weren't projected to win, they pull out a win. And that's just kind of that any given Friday, Saturday night, vibe there. These teams are coming in with a lot of momentum into the postseason, looking for some motivation. So there's some games up and down this 1A that could really go either way.
Definitely. And looking at a couple other teams, let's list a couple of them off. We won't get too deep into them, but a couple other area teams that are playing. Peru St. Bede, a 7 seed. They'll be hosting Forreston in the north bracket. Going to the south side, you got Ridgeview Lexington from the Heart of Illinois Conference. They went 9-0 after a deep run into the playoffs. Perhaps it's a surprise as a 13 seed last year, finished the season 5-4. They got all the way to, I believe, either the quarterfinals or semifinals. I can't remember which one off the top of my head, but again, that's a testament to your point that it's any given Friday or Saturday, a team could make a deep run. So Ridgeview Lexington, the 1 seed in the south bracket, they will host 16th seeded Madison. That game will be on Friday. night. And other schools, Rushville Industry near Macomb, they will be on the road against Toledo Cumberland. So, again, a quick look at 1A, but moving up to 2A, a couple more area schools in this bracket. Obviously, the first big one, Farmington and El Paso Gridley, two teams that are 7-2. I think this is going to be a really close game. They actually matched up in the playoffs last year. Farmington came away with a big win, but these two teams are a little bit different this year.
Yeah, you saw the Farmers play, and I think the expectation for the Farmers, go 9-0, be that dominant team that everybody saw last year. And you can say, okay, maybe they took a step back, but they faced some really good teams. I mean, Macomb was unreal this year. They faced some really good programs, and 7-2 ain't half bad. So Farmington is still an extremely tough team. They've got a lot of energy and a lot of momentum, but you face another 7-2 team, when you get to those 8 and 9 seeds, I mean, that's a flip of a coin. I mean, it may be home field advantage that can decide that, maybe in-game momentum and things. I think either way, that's going to be a game that comes down to one score. It really could go either way. I don't really have a prediction to put on it. It's just going to be an excellent football game.
Yeah, especially as, covering the area like we do, following all of our local teams, that's one game that really jumps out. If you look at this 2A bracket, and like Gavin said, this game really could go either way. It could be a higher scoring game. It could be a lower scoring game. Defense, maybe a lot of offense. Really tough to predict a game like that, but that is going to be an exciting game come Saturday.
Definitely, and for El Paso Gridley, a team that we probably haven't mentioned that much, they finished 7-2. They got a big win against Tri-Valley in Week 9. When I talked with a lot of Heart of Illinois conference head coaches before the year. I talked with Jason Bachman from Eureka and Zach Zier from Tremont, Tanner Benedict from EPG, and really the main kind of theme between all of them is they all wanted to beat Tri-Valley. That was one of their biggest goals of the year. El Paso Gridley was able to do that. Dax Jens has been really good for them, as long as also with Illinois commit Declan Dooley kicking and punting as well. So the Titans definitely have some weapons. That's a great 8-9 game to watch. Going down the bracket a little bit more, you see Bloomington Central Catholic. They will be on the road against Mercer County. Knoxville will be hosting Mendon Unity, the Blue Bullets, 7 seed in the North bracket. And then Tri-Valley, the team that was lost to El Paso Gridley, they will be hosting Clifton Central as the 6th seed. That game will be on Saturday at 2 p.m. in Downs. Looking at the south side of the bracket, no real local teams there. So we'll move on over to 3A. A couple area teams right here. First one we see, North bracket, 9 seed Elmwood Brimfield. The Trojans finished the season 6-3, and they'll be heading on the road to Genoa Kingston. I know I saw the Trojans this year against Farmington in Week 7 and everything, but they're a pretty good team that has been good for quite some time.
Yeah, Elmwood Brimfield's a solid program, and they've been a little bit up and down this year, but once again, they ran into some juggernaut teams in Macomb and Farmington, and those teams are just really good. And I think the game you went to, maybe that wasn't even a good indicator of who they really are. Maybe the score's a little bit run up playing at Farmington. Either way, though, Elmwood Brimfield is a really solid team. Sloan Windish is definitely a big player to watch on that team, linebacker. They definitely have some guys that are known around the state, especially on their defensive side of things. Just got to figure out some of that consistency, play your best football at the right time, and the right time is now Week 1 of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think when you play teams like that, get a couple losses during the regular season really helps give you that confidence, getting some of those losses out of the way, knowing that you've played some experienced veteran teams going into the postseason. This is only benefiting them going forward, getting those couple losses under their belt, starting off fresh.
Definitely, and the Trojans, they play in the Prairie Land Conference, which is a pretty hard conference, at least it was this year. Macomb went undefeated. Farmington went 7-2. Rushville Industry also qualified for the playoffs as well. So Elmwood Brimfield, a team to watch. Some names to watch, like Gavin mentioned, Sloan Windish. She's one of the hardest hitters that you will see. I can attest to that. Also Aiden Frail as well, their running back, always looking to do some damage. So looking at a little bit further down the bracket here in 3A, nobody too close again. Prairie Central over in Fairbury, a little bit of a drive from Peoria, but they went undefeated. They will host Paxton at Buckley Loda in round 1 as a 1 seed. And looking at the bottom of the bracket, really the biggest team that, again, Adam Duvall talked about earlier was Eureka. They are in a 6th seed at 7-2. They will host Beardstown on Friday night. for the Hornets.
Yeah, and we kind of touched on it earlier, so I won't take too long, but Eureka's a very good football team, and they have a rich tradition, a rich culture, and that's one of their opponents, Cody Myers. I talked to him. He says they're just a standout football team. And I also talked to Coach Wright from Canton. He said they're an excellent opponent, and that's the reason they scheduled them early in the year. So Eureka's faced bigger schools. They faced top-tier schools. Again, a couple losses, you don't want to see that, but gives you time to make those adjustments and find ways to hit your stride. I would be very surprised if Eureka didn't make it at least to the quarterfinals, if not the semifinals.
Yeah, and you look at their schedule, and you talk about defense when you're going into a postseason. Eureka has the defense.
No kidding.
So many shutouts that they pitched this year. I believe it's like midway through the season that they had only allowed 7 points and then gave up a field goal, so it ended up being 10, and then suffered a couple of those losses. But you get the losses out of the way, they're looking to bounce back. Eureka has a lot of receivers on that team that are threats as far as Jake Morin at quarterback, very talented. The Hornets have a really good chance here.
Definitely, and Jake Morin, their quarterback, I feel like he was a weekly occurrence on our Players of the Week posts on social media. So Jake Morin, also a great quarterback. He's got great weapons in Drew Dingledine, Justice Bachman, Rylan Bachman as well. So the Hornets, even though they're 7-2 and a 6th seed, not among the top, but they're a team that can definitely surprise. So just like Gavin said, I definitely expect Eureka to make a good run into the playoffs. So that about wraps up for the local teams for 3A. Look at 4A. Not too many local teams in this bracket. Usually you see Peoria, Notre Dame in 4A. They obviously had a tough season going 3-6. So no Irish this year. Again, looking down the bracket, really not much. You see Sacred Heart Griffin, a 2 seed down in Springfield. They'll be hosting at Spring Valley Hall. And then Macomb down the number 3 seed. They'll be hosting Quincy Notre Dame as well. Again, a couple teams that really not too familiar with, but a couple good matchups here. I don't know if you guys have anything for 4A.
Nope.
Yeah, but
the only other thing is 4A. I do know it's Ken Leonard's last year at Sacred Heart Griffin. They're trying to get back to the state championship, and they've played some really good games this year, averaging upwards to 50, 60 points. Just looking at 4A, they have a good shot, but Macomb, do not count Macomb out.
No. Definitely, yeah, the Bombers, a squad to watch this year. And also, a game I'm looking at right now is a potential quarterfinal matchup. Joliet Catholic Academy, a longtime power in Class 4A. They're the 5 seed at 7-2. They could face Richmond Burton, who went undefeated and was the only team to beat Normal West this year in the quarterfinals. So that could be a really good game. That's what I have my eye on in 4A, at least right now. So we'll jump ahead to 5A, and we'll see a little bit more local flavor in here. Again, in the North bracket, a lot of Chicago schools, no real local schools, but look at the South bracket. First off, Metamora and Jacksonville, another local 8-9 seed game.
Yeah, Metamora, they definitely turned things around, and I think everybody may have been saying, Metamora, they lost a lot of those games. They had a tough finish to their season last year, even though they 5-4, but, they were not on the same track. They've really turned things around, and they kind of honed it, and that's what Metamora football does. A solid program like that, even when you go through rough patches, you find ways to turn it around, you find ways to right the ship, get everybody on the same page, and that's exactly what they've done. They've gotten everybody. I know Ben Wallace mentioned they're playing Wii football. They are playing football as a team now. They kind of put all those things aside, and now they are on the top of their game. You saw that when they played Dunlap in a big way and with a big win the other day. So, again, they're going to have a very even matchup at Jacksonville, but they have home field advantage. They're getting hot at the right time. The Redbirds definitely could surprise. You may not say, they're a state contender, but, again, a lot of things go right 1 week at a time. You never know. The Redbirds could be playing for a state championship.
Yeah, and I think their most complete game of the season came in that Week 9 game against Dunlap. They looked really sound on offense. They were creating a lot of spacing for their running backs to get through. Played some very sound defense, only holding Dunlap, a good Dunlap team, to 6 points. That's the win you want going into a game against Jacksonville. Not to mention, like Ben Wallace said, it's a game at Malone Field. They're going to bring a big crowd.
Definitely, and the rest of the 5A bracket, oh boy, guys, this is going to get interesting. Look at this. There's a quadrant of 8 schools, 4 games in the first round. We'll go through all of them real quick. number 2 seed Highland. They will host 15th seeded Dunlap. So a tough road trip for the Eagles. Mascoutah, the 17 will play 10 seeded Marion. You may think, okay, why does that matter? It's not two local teams, but Mascoutah beat Dunlap in the first round of the playoffs last year, and Marion, it took down the Metamora Redbirds in round 1 as well. So 2 teams that have experience playing Mid-Illini opponents. And then you got Peoria, the 3 seed. They will host Decatur MacArthur on Saturday afternoon. And then below that, you got Kankakee, a 6 seed, one of the best teams in the state, I would argue, and then they're hosting Mount Vernon. But I have my eyes on a potential Peoria High Kankakee matchup at Peoria Stadium in round 2. Again, can't look too much forward, but that matchup has me salivating.
Yeah, that matchup would be amazing. And, again, Peoria High, they don't want to get too far ahead of themselves. I know they kind of an early exit in the playoffs last year against Morgan Park, and that's a tough team, But this is a much different Peoria High team. I think they're becoming more complete. We've seen that defense, and even in the game where they played Normal West, yeah, they struggled a little bit, but they faced some adversity with the weather and things, and that was not the way they wanted to play. I'm sure Tim Thornton would tell you that, because they're an excellent team, and he mentioned it right here. They play high-tempo, exciting football, and that's exactly what you're going to see. Regardless of who they're playing or what night it is, they're going to play exciting football. They'll do that against Decatur, and if they do indeed get that win, if they play Kankakee, that is going to be one of the best playoff matchups of the second week of the playoffs around anywhere in the state, and I think a lot of people would agree on that.
Oh, for sure. And with that game, that jumps right out. If it is, in fact, Peoria High Kankakee, a lot of offense. I mean, it's a Kankakee team that can score quite a bit. And not to mention state runner-up last year. If Peoria High gets Kankakee, that's a tough draw right off the bat.
It really is.
In the second round. But both of these teams, I should say if they meet in the second round, you will want to be at that game for sure.
Definitely. And also don't forget about Dunlap either. They'll be on the road against Highland. Obviously, I think that Highland would be heavily favored, but don't forget about Dunlap. They have a trio of weapons on offense, Madden Burke and Braden Orr, Graham Glover, that can definitely get it done. When the Eagles are good, they are really, really good. So Dunlap definitely looking for a big upset on the road. Definitely want to follow along with that game. That will be Friday at 7 p.m. down in Highland. So moving on to bracket 6A, almost kind of done here. Again, obviously the North brackets with these larger classes, a lot of Chicago schools. So we'll go down to the Southern brackets, and the main local team we see here, obviously Washington, the 12 seed, they'll be facing Bremen. Champaign Centennial in the Big 12. They finished the season 7-2. They got a tough matchup against Crete Monee on the road in Week 1 in the 7-10 matchup. Normal West, the Big 12 champions, after defeating Centennial, they are 8-1. They will host conference foe Danville. And then the game below that, another matchup that I don't want to get too far ahead of myself that I'm tantalized by, is Normal West and East St. Louis, who was hosting Oakland Richards in round 1. So the Wildcats and the Flyers could be facing off in round 2. But guys, just want to get your thoughts here on the Southern bracket here of Class 6A.
Your use of adjectives is impeccable, Jonathan. I love it. But no, this South bracket is amazing. There's some really, really good games to watch. And I got to say, it's a tough draw for Champaign Centennial. I mean, they played so good all year. I know they fell to Normal West, but honestly, to be the 10 seed at 7-2, I mean, what a bummer to not be able to get a home game. So if you're Centennial, you just got to go in and say, look, we want to play for a home game. If you win this game, you're guaranteed a home game in the second week of the playoffs. I think Centennial has more than enough to pull it off. Now, it's a very even matchup, but I think they have more than enough to do it. And then a couple of Big 12 foes getting together, Normal Community and Danville. Again, you hate to see two Big 12 teams have to go at it in the first week of the playoffs. But again, that'll be another exciting matchup, and I think Community, again, hitting their stride at the right time, bit of a slow start. They're hitting their stride at the right time for sure. And as you mentioned, that East St. Louis, Oakland Richards, possibly going forward with East St. Louis, they're an exciting team to watch. This South bracket is excellent.
Yeah, it seems like these, as we've looked at the last few brackets, the bottom half there is loaded with state-ranked teams. So these are going to be some really fun first-round matchups, but second-round matchups could be some of the best games of the year. I like Washington going in. I think they've had a really good win against Morton. Their defense came ready to play, so they're going to be ready, as Jake Stewart and Garrett Cox were saying, hey, we're ready to go. Our defense is our vocal point. Look for Washington to try to make some noise. And then Normal West as well. We saw them in that game win over Peoria High, and then they close out the Big 12 as conference champions. They're another team really polished. and experience coming into the postseason.
Definitely. In Washington, I think, quick final thoughts about Washington. I think it's a team that's a lot better than their record. I mean, their 3 losses are all to very, very good teams in Highland, Kankakee, and Pekin. So, again, the Panthers finished the season 6-3, but I really like them to go into Bremen on Friday night and pull off an upset. So that will wrap it up for 6A, a very exciting class, I think. And going to 7A, this is the last one we'll do. Again, no local teams in 8A. Those are all Chicago schools. This is Central Illinois.
Yes.
I say we have the better football. That's the hill that I'll die on. So really, looking in 7A, obviously the bottom quadrant in the South bracket, you got Pekin obviously facing Plainfield Central, and then Normal Community, they'll be on the road against Rockton Hononegah, who beat Pekin last year in the 7A playoffs. So those are really 2 of the only local teams here in Class 7A.
Yeah, Pekin's got to take care of business, and again, we don't want to look too far ahead, but I know they are absolutely licking their chops to try to play Hononegah in that second week of the playoffs because of what happened last year. Also, if they play Hononegah next week, that would also mean that they would get another home game. So a lot of things going there. They want to play Hononegah. They want to, for bragging rights. They want to keep moving on, of course. Even if they play Community, though, it's going to be an excellent game. And I think this is probably the best shot Pekin has had in the state playoffs and probably a couple decades or more. This is just an excellent group, a deep group. They're all over the field. They've got guys at running back, wide receiver, quarterback, on the defense. So many people we could name. Pekin's a really good football program. You're not going to want to miss them on Friday night.
Yeah, and like you said, Gavin, I'm sure Pekin's just wanting to get that first game out of the way, get a big win over Plainfield Central. They're in front of their home crowd, so it's win or go home now. So for all these teams, the focus is just one game at a time. But you look at that next matchup, if they win, Hononegah and Normal Community. And Normal Community, they're a good team as well, but they've ran into some really solid teams in Big 12. Normal West, Centennial, Peoria High. So they've been challenged this year. They kind of are looking to bounce back in the postseason, but tough draw with Hononegah there. If we do get the Pekin-Hononegah matchup, like you said, they get it at home, that'll be a win they want to take.
Yeah, that's a great point that Gavin just made. Is Pekin, they'll be rooting for Hononegah, I think, because if they win, again, it's another home game at Pekin Memorial Stadium. But again, at least I may be starting a little selfish here, but I wouldn't mind a Pekin Normal Community Big 12 Mid-Illini crossover matchup there. That would be lots of fun. So if Pekin can win, whoever they play in round 2 is going to be a prime time appointment television. So that will wrap it up for about 7A. And again, like we said, no local teams in 8A. That's all Chicago. We're Central Illinois, so we'll just focus on 1 to 7A. But guys, we're about to wrap up this podcast here soon. We'll just do one more quick segment that we normally do on our shows, and that's 3 words or less. And then we'll just kind of talk about your guys' final thoughts as well. Gavin, we'll start with you.
I got to say, find the magic. That's the 3 words. And I think, again, as we've heard so many of these players say, they're so smart and they know this so well, especially the seniors that came out here and talked with us. They know they're 0-0 right now. It's a fresh start. They got to go in. They got to play their game. Find the magic because, again, regardless of how good you are, you got to be able to kind of just find that spark, kind of find that edge in the playoffs because it's a whole different atmosphere. It's win or go home time. And even for some of these schools, maybe you're counting them out already. Maybe they're the lower seed. They just snuck in at 5-4, 6-3. They can find the magic, and they can be just as special. So if any of these teams, if multiple of these Central Illinois teams in 1 to 7A can find that magic, I think we're going to see some teams go real deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, my 3 words are defense is key. And, you look through the years, you're going to see it every postseason. You're going to see close games. No matter what team you are in the area, you're going to have those teams that see that target on your back. They're going to want to come out and give you their best game. So it all starts with the defensive end. And we talked to Metamora. We talked with Washington, Pekin. Sound defensive teams, Peoria High, teams like Normal West. So coming into the postseason, when your defense is really clicking, you're in good position to win some games. Definitely, and my 3 words or less, I'm going to go with 2. Can't lose. Sounds pretty obvious, but again, in the playoffs, you cannot lose. Otherwise, your season is done. If you're a senior, your high school career is, and obviously, a lot of these players that we talked to tonight, they'll probably go on to play college football at some place, at some level for sure. But, for some people, their high school careers will end if, their team, obviously doesn't come out on top. So really, this is where you need to peak if you're a high school football team, and obviously you can't really afford a down week
really. Otherwise, every team here in the playoffs will make you pay. There are no bad teams in the playoffs for sure. So that's what I had. Again, just kind of wanted to quickly wrap that up. But, guys, it has been a blast here for our very first In the Clutch live podcast. I know, Gavin, I know you're waiting to destroy some wings here over at Kouri's, but also want to give a big shout out to Kouri's as well for being so gracious in hosting our first live podcast. When I think of other crew members, Francisco Alonso taking some pictures and Rodrigo Perez doing some producing as well. And John Camosa providing some great analysis as well, talking with our great guests, Adam Duvall, Garrett Cox, Jake Stewart, Tim Thornton, Deuce Thornton, who else? Scotty Jordan, Ben Wallace. I mean, we had a great group of guests as well. Really was so fun to talk to all of them and everything. And I mean, it just makes me happy that, we're able to talk to so many great athletes and everything and just kind of get to know more about them and all their teams as the playoffs round up. So, guys, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Well, I'm about to destroy some wings, and Kouri's does have excellent wings, so come out sometime and try them. But, no, it's been a fun night. We talked to some great guests. I'm very appreciative of everybody coming out, and hopefully you enjoyed this. You learned a little bit more, got you prepped for the playoffs, and you can watch us throughout the week, too. Hopefully we pick up some viewers throughout the week as well. Get you ready for playoff football. I mean, this is the best time of the year for Friday Night Lights or Saturday football. It's just going to be awesome. I'm so excited for it. About all I got.
I'll second to what Gavin said. I also am going to destroy some wings. A lot of talking has made me hungry. But looking forward to these games. As soon as that bracket came out on Saturday, our group was excited. We see where our area teams land. We got a lot of talented players in this year's 1A through 8A. It's going to be exciting. Looking forward to fast forwarding, I would say, to go to November. I like watching those state championship games, and I hope to see some of our area teams potentially reach one.
Lots of area teams loaded with talent. Definitely have a chance to make the state championship. But, guys, that will about wrap it up for our very first ever In the Clutch live podcast. Again, a quick reminder that you can catch live video coverage of Pekin and Plainfield North this Friday evening at 7 p.m. Excuse me. Been talking so long I lost my voice almost, and then Peoria will face Decatur MacArthur. That will also be broadcast live on Clutch Sports Media as well. But stay tuned to our social media for any broadcast updates during the week. But that will about do it here from Kouri's Pub in Sterling Avenue in Peoria, Illinois. For John Camosa, Gavin Russell, Francisco Alonso, Rodrigo Perez, I'm Jonathan Michael saying so long, and we will see you this weekend for the first round of the IHSA playoffs. Thanks, and have a good night, everybody.